Hey guys, Captain Shack here, and welcome to the city streets of Caradon City. We're zoomed in on a group of stormtroopers holding their position behind some sandbags on one of the cities that my players are currently exploring in our tabletop RPG, Edge of the Empire, or Birth of Rebellion, or Force and Destiny. I don't know, Fantasy Flight Games is weird, and they have 3 base rulebooks for the same game. It's really strange. But today's video isn't about that. It's about why I use Tabletop Simulator for my chosen virtual tabletop, and so I can play with my friends remotely at, as we zoom out here, the table. And this is our actual play table. We've been playing this game for about 3 years. Now, what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to try to, as briefly as I can, walk through some really basic tools on how the game works, and then I'm going to show you a few of the workshop items that'll make your game much easier to run and organize. You probably recognize some of these things. I've talked about them before in live streams, like One World, some of the ways of like saving objects, and some of my favorite Star Wars-y map building tools. But anything that you can take from here that's Star Wars related, you can do for 5e as well. So keep that in mind if you're only interested in Dungeons and Dragons, or whatever your tabletop game of choice, RPG of choice is. If you're interested in making cool maps or just looking for a virtual tabletop, maybe you'll learn something here and find out that this is, a game or a virtual tabletop that's interesting to you and you want to use it. All right. So in the past, I've used Roll20. There's lots of options out there, and there is no wrong answer. Let me turn the UI on. But I love Tabletop Simulator because it's quite literally a table. It physicalizes the table. It makes it a 3D object that my players can actually sit around and yap. Let me reset my camera. If you hit P, you can switch the camera modes, right? So this is the third-person camera. Spacebar actually resets the camera to its default position. And if you keep hitting P, it'll actually change the various versions of the camera. So third person, first person, top down. If you're playing, I don't know, checkers, chess. I don't know why you'd want top down camera, but this is the one that I think everybody really uses. It's the third person camera. It allows you to rotate on a single point, and then WASD lets you look around the table. So we can see some of the NPCs that are currently kind of players in the campaign in the city that my players are exploring. I've got them on a table at the side. I've imported these. I don't have the rights to this artwork. It is just art that I found on Google, and one of the reasons I love TTS is because I can just grab stuff to use as a reference for my players and import it straight into the game. It's quite easy to do just by going up to Objects, Components. This is where you pull in stuff like dice, like custom boards if you want to pull in a board, or a figurine, like this one right here. You just drag that into the world and it says, hey, give me a URL, paste your URL in there, and boom, you've got yourself, one of these characters. I think this is like a cyberpunk character. But it works. It works to help, tell your story and give you icons. You don't have to have all the cool 3D models or anything like that. I get a little crazy. My zen is making maps, and so a lot of times my maps are a little overboard, like this one is, where I piece this together out of hundreds of little objects all off the workshop. If I go up to games at the top here, we can actually go to the workshop. You can see all the stuff that I have subscribed to. Tabletop Simulator has an amazing community, and there is just all kinds of crazy assets that you can get into each one of these. Let's load up the asset pack, for instance, for a second. You can get into each one of these, and you can just pull any asset out of any map that is on the workshop and bring it into your world for your use, whatever you want to do with it. So say you're playing a tabletop game and you need a dragon, or you need a tank, or you need some sandbags like you saw before with those stormtroopers. I actually built that stormtrooper group behind those sandbags out of various parts off of different maps to make that unit, that single unit there that was kind of entrenched. This right here is a Star Wars building map that a community member made, and I'll put a link in the description if you want to check out this workshop item. But this is really great. If you're looking to make maps like that map that I showed earlier, you can just click any one of these bags. They're all named after their filters, right? So this is like industrial stuff. Let it load in here. Sometimes stuff is taken off the workshop, so you'll get one of these little error custom model things. Just close it, and it'll disappear off the map. But I've loaded up 2 of these packs. One is the towers, moisture, farbs, etc., and the other one is the industrial, and it's just like a bunch of Lego blocks that you can build with. How cool is that? You don't have to get crazy complicated with this. You can just import 2D maps and use them. I just wanted to show kind of what's available out there on the workshop, because this is probably my #1 reason that I use Tabletop Simulator is the workshop. in all of the fun tools that have been created by and brought into the game for our personal, private use, which is very, very cool. There's so many neat assets. Like, here's a freaking Juggernaut. I'm pretty sure this is from Empire War. Look at that. Isn't that cool? If you want to play like a Clone Wars campaign, very neat, very neat. Or if you wanted to like pull in a dragon for your D&D campaign, there's all kinds of custom models out there that you can bring in. So let's go through some of the basics on how the game functions. As if you're looking to use this, and you've seen what you're capable of making here. I like that he's added in these creatures. I actually recognize these. These are all from Star Wars Galaxies, including the blue frog. That's great. When he updates this workshop, he'll put the new stuff like out on the table so you can see what's been added recently, which is very convenient for us GMs that are looking for some inspiration for the ongoing stories and campaigns. But all right, let's start a brand new table and go from there, shall we? We're gonna go back to the main menu, actually. Let's go back. Yes. You just bought the game. You've loaded it up. By the way, I'm not sponsored or anything. I have no connection to the developers of this. It's just a product that I've used for years now, and I quite like, and I like how it's been developing. The updates have been pretty nice. They've added, like, we have music now as kind of like a jukebox player. We can play music and all our players will hear it and it'll be synced up. It needs a little more work, but it's nice to see that those kind of features are being put in. All right, so we're gonna start a brand new map. So we're gonna go create. We're gonna go single player, multiplayer, obviously, if you wanna play with your friends. Single player, it'll load this really crappy table with nothing on it. And that's not great for tabletop RPGs, so let's go ahead and close this. This is all of the preloaded games that it comes with and assets that it comes with, so if you want to play like checkers or whatever, you can do that. What I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to go to my objects, and let's start customizing this world space, because what you're doing is you're building your like living room, your table space, and we're going to go for tables, and I want a longer table for my players to use. Sure, heck. That works fine. We can do that. And you can load pre-built tables off of the workshop. There are plenty of them, but we'll use this for now. All right, here's our table. We can start spawning things in here if we wanted to. We go to saved objects. This is your personal saved objects. Components are going to be your dice, your custom boards, if you want to load in random blocks, if you need to make like a platform or something. You can even recolor these by right-clicking them. I've used these to great effect. To make all kinds of maps. Just having simple blocks to work with. You make it gray, and now you get the floor of a Imperial Star Destroyer. And you can start building up the walls and stuff if you wanted to, if you want to go that way. Or maybe you just want to make, if I go to the Gizmo Tool, you can actually resize stuff with this. We go to rescale or volume scale. Say a player's decided to cast the fly spell, but it needs to be off the ground. Well, you can just do that and then put the character's model on top of it. So those blocks, so spawning those in, super useful. So we go back to objects. We got your tables section for spawning in, or choosing which table you want. The table is not going to go anywhere, and you cannot unlock it, so you can't mess up the table without hitting the flip table button, which does exactly what you think it does. So we got components. We already went through. We can go figurines if you want to spawn in a custom figure. RPG Kit actually does have, like, heroes. Actually has... already in the game by default animated character models if you want to just jump right into your first game and you need something like a knight or a mage or I think there's a fairly certain mythical, there should be a dragon in here. There's a basilisk. Oh, that's cool. There's actually been more of these added since last time I looked in here. Lizards, there they are. Black dragon. Oh, that's cool. That is neat. And then a wyvern. Whoa. And I love that these are animated because you can right-click them. You can go mode. Now he's flying mode. You can do an attack animation. And then when he's finally gets killed off, you can animate him die and he stays knocked out on the ground. How cool is that? And that's for all of those character models. Hopefully they keep adding more of these. Very, very neat. I mean, that right there is enough to just jump into a D&D game, which is pretty cool. All right, so we've talked about already going into, objects and pulling out stuff that's already in the game with components, tables, backgrounds is you want to click these, actually changes the skybox. You can import modded versions that you saw in my personal table. I've got a Starfield because it is a Star Wars game. You can subscribe to more of these. You can pull them in from other maps. So let's talk about pulling stuff in from other maps, because that's going to be a big part of using the workshop. So if I go up to games, and I've already, if I click workshop, actually if I hit shift tab with my workshop items, click the workshop at the top, I can pull up the current front page of the workshop and see, okay, oh man, we've got Army Painter, High Elves, Dragon Princes. Okay, maybe I want Dnd Tools version. Maybe I want that. I don't know what this is. This is cool. I'm going to subscribe to that. I'm going to guess it's objects for a D&D game. I have no idea. Let's go find out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save my current map. Not that there's a whole lot going on here. Going to games, going to save and load. Going to save the game as my tabletop map. Saved. There it is, tabletop map. I can reload that anytime I want, just to make sure I have a backup of it. And then let's go ahead, going up to games, under workshop, there's our D&D tools that we just subscribed to off the workshop. Let's load that up and see what it is. I have no idea. Could be some cool stuff in here. It looks like it's a chest with a custom background that looks like it's from The Witcher? Yes, it is a screenshot from The Witcher that's been wrapped into a sphere. I love it, because there he is. There's Geralt. Awesome. What's in here? What are you? I can search by right-clicking it, because it is a container. You can make anything into a container, which is quite cool, because that means you can spawn in like a backpack, and then your players can put all their stuff in the backpack if you want to, so they can keep their play area nice and clean. Oh, it looks like we've got all kinds of scenes and markers. Open to treasure chest. That treasure chest has markers inside it. Looks like 5-foot radius. Ah, markers is in D&D markers for spell casting and stuff. I gotcha. This is a graveyard. Why not? Weird, but random. Okay. I'm guessing there's a health bar tracker here. Nice. This is a scripted health bar tracker. Now, the cool thing about this is, oh yeah, this is totally scripted. So I can make my like D&D character John Roland. So say I'm making my map, it's a D&D map, and I'm like, man, you know, I really like this health bar tracker. This is really cool. I would love to have this for my players in my game. What you can do is, you can right-click the object and go Save Object from any one of the workshop items. We'll leave it named Health, and we'll put it in the root folder. I have an absolute ton of folders in here. You're not going to have all these. This is for my own, this is how I keep my stuff organized. So I've got things into like characters, and then they break down into the various factions. So rebels, monsters, Imperials, force users, droids, ground vehicles, spacecraft, interior decor that's sci-fi, fantasy, modern. Like this is how I organize my stuff. But you're only going to have root folder because you'll only have that base folder. But we'll go ahead and save this. I'm going to save it under the root folder. I'm going to name it just Health. I'm going to call it Health Bar. Health bar, save, and then you type in, I guess, your health here. So I've got 12 health. Oh, that's cool. That's really neat. So now I've got it saved. Let's load back into our world space. So we're gonna pull our map back up. We already saved it. There it is, tabletop map. Let's go ahead and load that. Go to objects. Now we've got saved objects down here. You should have had it before. The only thing you'll have in here is things that you've saved from any map that you've been on, and you can save damn near everything into this. There's our health bar. You can even search all of the objects, including the ones that are in folders, by their name, drag and drop. And you can do this for any object that you have saved. Say you want, for some reason, a dice grenade that you can totally pull the pin on. And throw. There it goes. You can put dice in there, they roll, and it explodes. Or you need an aircraft because you have a space battle coming up and you want a spaceship to be like represented on the map. So you can spawn this stuff in and you can make a play space for your players. So say we've got a player over here. Or maybe you need a table. You want to expand the table size, so you make yourself a table and you save it. So you always have a copy of it like this right here. A little backup table to put stuff on. Hitting L will lock any object in the world space. So if I want to have this starship flying around, I can hit L and lock it. Now the players can't mess with it. It won't move around. It won't be impacted by anything that hits it. You know, this all has physics and collisions. Everything does. But if we click the Gizmo tool, I can actually click this. Gizmo is to manipulate objects. I can lift it off the ground because it's locked. It won't go anywhere. But with the Gizmo tool, I can move even locked objects around. And now it's like flying over the map. It even casts shadows. And there are objects that have been put into other worlds that lets you manipulate the sun direction if you want to. If you're really like this right here. There's so many cool little tools in this. And this is why I really like this tool. This virtual tabletop. So depending on what direction I rotate this is the direction that the light is cast on our world map, which is pretty neat. All right, so we've talked a little bit about pulling stuff into the world. We've talked about loading up workshops. And like I said, you can find pre-existing tables that are already set up probably for the game that you're looking to play with your friends. So say D&D or Star Wars. There's quite a few good ones for like FFG. What other tools do we have? I'll walk you through real quick these side tools before we get into my favorite workshop items that really make running a game as a GM easy. And really fast, at the top, your grab tool is exactly what it looks like. It's just your finger, your hand here to pick stuff up, move it around, manipulate it. The next one is the draw tool and all of its various modifiers. You can change the color of it. If you need to draw, for instance, a world space for your players, that's like, okay, there's a building and there's a door right here and there's one window here and there's a window here and there's a sliding glass door in the back and there's a bed on the left-hand side and there's a coffee table and you can draw that out for them. This is how I've done really fast maps because my players surprised me and I didn't have a map prepared, or they just need that visual indicator of what the space looks like. It's a draw tool. You can use it for anything you want. You can freaking play tic-tac-toe with it if you like. You can change the colors of it. You can change the line width. You can draw boxes if you want to make a perfect box. Circle. There you go. And don't forget, eraser tool so that you can erase it. You do have to make sure that you touch the line with it to get rid of it. There we go. There, all cleaned up. If you do something on accident, like for instance, oh man, I'm working on something and I accidentally unlocked this and I didn't mean to, and it was something very intricate, and you need to undo, there's the rewind time button. I can click it once and it'll go back by like, what, it's like 1 minute or 1 second or something. You can also Control Z, which will undo some of the more recent changes that you've made. With this, I'm just gonna delete these again. So that's the line tool, pretty straightforward. There is a limit to some of the things that you can draw on. I think boards like this one right here, which was spawned using the objects, components, custom boards here. This is how I made this. And this is just an image off of Google that I attached to the board with the Phoenix logo from, I believe this is from Rebels, from Sabine. All right, so back to the grabby tool. What were we doing? Well, we were going through the draw tool. Then we've got the zone tool. Now, zones are for setting up areas that, if I click it, we can draw squares that are zones for certain players, right? So if I click this, I can actually open up the colors. Now, these colors represent the various player positions on the board. So for red would be the red player. When you join a game, any game, you can choose change color at the top, and you can choose what player you wish to be. And the reason this is important is because you can set up stuff like fog of war, so only certain colors can see within a box. Or you can set up hands if you're playing a card game, where no other player can see what's in the hand but that player. And that's what this is for. To get rid of this, one, choose a color. Middle, by the way, is Game Master. Game Master can see all of the hands, and that's going to be what you're going to want to be if you're playing as the GM. So you can set up your GM screen and hide your various monsters and all of your prepped assets you don't want your players to see. This is what this is for. You can draw out, I'll switch to Game Master, and yep, there we go. I'm now set to Game Master. If I click this, and I say, I need a spot that my players cannot see. It's going to be mine. I'll have hidden selected. I will draw it out, and then I will click it, and I'll say, okay, this is for Game Master only. And let's put in something like this ship, hitting L to unlock it. I don't want my players to know that there is a pirate ship that's going to show up in today's game. I've prepped it. It's ready to go all behind my GM screen on the side of the table here. I don't want them to see this. So now that I put this in the box that's set to Game Master only, if I change my color to, say, the red player, notice I cannot see that ship anymore. Anything in this box will be invisible to all players but the one that it is set to and the Game Master. Game Master sees all, knows all. All right. Let's go ahead and get rid of some of these areas. You hit delete with having the zone tool out to delete the zones. What else can we do? Well, that's how you draw out the hands section. This map already has, it comes with them. Hands are this. If I say, I believe I can. If you've got a deck, you can right-click and go send to hand. This isn't a deck, it's a starship. So that's what that does. That's going to be your zone tool. Next up is the line tool. Line tool is really neat because it's not like drawing lines. It's actually for measuring distances. If you play war games, you're going to immediately get why this is useful. The line tool is there for measuring lines. So if you need to know, for instance, how far two models are from each other based on a grid of, say, 5 feet squares, if you're playing D&D, this is the tool you're going to want to use. And you can even choose how you measure. You'll notice one is like 3D to 2D. Units, grids, 3D, 2D, by the way, is it takes into account the angle. So if an object is off the table by a certain height, it will still measure it based on that 3D instead of a direct line. So if you've got somebody who casted the fly spell and you want to know, okay, how far away from the dragon they are, you're going to want to make sure that's on 3D. You're probably asking, yeah, but how do I do grids then? I mean, that's great. I can measure between units become grids, and I can set it to 2D, and I can say, oh, yeah, well, I want to be able to see that grid. Like, it's great that that's 7, squares away? Sure, because it's a grid. But what grid? I can't see the grid. Let's turn the grid on. Go to Options, scroll down to Grid, and flick on Show Lines. And suddenly, we can see a grid that you can manipulate to any size you want. You want a really big map in D&D? Bring the grid size way down. You want a really, really small map in D&D where it's only maybe 20 feet across is one of the rooms in this building. Well, then there's no reason to make it this massive, massive thing. You can also change the size of models to fit the grid. So say this is going to be a large creature, I can make it big enough to take up a 3x3 square in whatever size my map is. I really love this. I mean, this is something you can't do at a table at your friend's house. You can't just change the size of the grid and then the models to go with it. But in TTS, you can, and it's quite nice. One of the other things you can do, let me pull out a character model real quick. So we go to characters. I will pull out my character, Matic Orda from Wasted's campaign, Much Naboo About Nothing, which we've been streaming. And I'll make him a bit smaller to fit this grid. There he is. Charisma-based character, if you can't tell by the shit-eating grin on his face. He now kind of fits, maybe a little bit smaller to fit into the grid. I'm doing this with plus and minus keys on the keyboard to change the size. You can do this with any object, by the way. You can change the size. So now you're probably thinking, man, how can I use that? You can do that a lot of creative things with that. You can change the size of blocks and walls and buildings and anything you can think of. You can change the size of it. You can see how I probably made that earlier map I showed, Carradine City. I resized a lot of things. If you lock them in place, like I just did, and you use, we'll get to the Gizmo Tool in a second. What I want to show right now, let's stay on topic. I get a little excited about this tool because I think it's quite cool. This is neat. So one of the things you can do with snapping, you can snap to center. And now you see there's a transparent image of the character. He will snap automatically to the center of the grid. If you know you're going to be playing on a grid, this is really nice. Or you can do both, where it'll actually snap to, for whatever reason, the midpoints. There you go. If you want hexagons, you can totally do that as well. If you prefer these, I actually prefer these for space battles. Quite nice for Star Wars FFG. So that's the grid system. You don't have to show the lines to still snap to them. So you can actually play this on a grid without ever seeing the grid. You just use the measurement tool. I'll turn the grid back on so you can see what the measurement tool is doing. So here's my character. I'm in, let's switch to boxes. And let's move the character to the center. He snaps. And then we're gonna go to measurement. And say, I need a stormtrooper. Let's grab a stormtrooper. He's already locked himself to the square. I can make him a little bigger to fit it. There we are. So I need to know how far away he is to do an attack, right? Well, if I use the line tool and I draw a line from my character to his, base to base, I'm 4 squares away. And if you count those out, yeah, it's about right. Just about 4.5 squares. If we actually go back to the grab tool, I measure this out. By the way, these are all shortcut keys within the same order that they're in. So line tool for me is F4. 4 squares away. 1, 2, 3, 4. There you go. That's what the measurement tool does. Easy peasy. Next one, flick. Does exactly what you think. Flick. 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 You can just flick stuff on the table. Why is this useful? I have no idea. I'm sure there's some game modes that do this. The farther that you reach out, the more force you're putting behind it. If anything ever falls off the table, it will respawn up above where it despawned from on the table. So he's back now. A few things that work on this, shortcut key-wise, by the way. Control-C to copy, Control-V to paste. That's a heck of a lot cheaper than going out and buying a bunch of models. Fantastic. All right, so that is our flick. Control-C, Control-V. Obviously, delete to delete things. Pretty quick and easy. If you leave your mouse over any of these, by the way, they will give you a brief description of what they do if you're confused. Combine tool. This is a little bit more advanced. If you want to make custom objects or you want objects that are attached to each other, this is what the combined tool is for. These are actually chains. You can combine objects to do all kinds of fun stuff. Now, normally, the only reason I would ever do this is because I want them to always be attached and I want to still be able to pick up and move them around the map, right? Well, as an example to this, like say I always want these 2 stormtroopers to be in pairs of 2 for some reason. If I click the combine tool and I click one and I drag it to the other and it highlights them both, it will lock these 2 together. Now, what I use this tool for isn't to hook together characters like this, because if I wanted to move them, I would just box select them and move them as a group. So why would I link these? Well, I used it to create custom characters and custom vehicles by splicing models together in fun ways. For instance, let me show an example that I've done literally yesterday for one of my players. One of my players got some new armor, and I happened to find a model that matches the armor that he found in game. He's got a very particular set of weapons and skills. Weapons that he's known for. So I went ahead and I spawned in a couple of PNGs of items that he's got, like the shield, this blade, that backpack, which is not a PNG, that's actually a model, but the rest of these are actually just PNGs off of Google, edited in Photoshop, cut out, and then spawned into the world. And then I moved them around. That weapon is called the Empire's Fall, which I think my player actually made in Photoshop or MS Paint or something, and then I cut it out and put it into onto our table. So he would have his stats on hand. If you right-click any object in the game, at the very bottom, you will see 3 blocks that you can write stuff into. Matic Orda, this is the name box. That guy, I'll type into it. And now when I put my mouse over it, it says that guy instead of Matic. If you write a description in here, he's the best dude around. That doesn't show up unless you leave your mouse over the object for about 2 seconds, and then the description will pop up. What's great about using that tool is that you can write in here information maybe that you want your players to see or that you want reference to. The third box is the GM box. These are notes for just you as the GM. Only what is the word that they actually use for if I change color? It's considered the game master's spot. It is called the GM spot. Can see this. This is great if you want to know how much health Matic has, or that dragon has, and you don't want to have to look it up in the book, you can type it into the notes section, and only you'll be able to see that. This is one of the ways that I actually keep track of NPCs that are on a map, their health, maybe special abilities. You can write all kinds of stuff in there, which is really nice. But anyways, we were talking about the link tool, and I got distracted. So the link tool, I'm going to give Orta this blade, just to give you an example. Let me make him bigger. Let me turn off grid locking so we don't have that shadow anymore. So we'll go to grid, and we'll turn it off. I'm not going to go through every tool this program has, just some of the ones that I find really interesting today. We're going to lock him in place so he doesn't move around. Now if I try to mouse over him, I still get the name. By the way, if you don't want a name to come up, then just delete the name in this bracket, and now nothing will come up when you put your mouse over. This is really great if you're building out a map and you've got like trees and stuff, and for some reason the model actually has a name to it, and you don't want like everything having a name and popping up when your mouse goes over it, just delete it. All right, so he's locked into place. Let's grab the Empire's Fall, which is this cool like staff-mounted sword, and I will lock that in place, kind of in position where I want it. Of course, it's bouncing over the character's model because he's in the way. I'm going to use the next tool we're going to describe, which is the Gizmo Tool. This allows you to move any object in the world. If the object is not locked down, though, when I move it by clicking an object, it will fall. When I click an object, it gives me 3 arrows. It gives me my X, Y, and Z axes. So if I click the sword, for instance, I can use the green arrow to move it down just by sliding the mouse up and down. Blue arrow to move it this way, and I can kind of like, he is not the guy for this. This is not going to look right on him, but we're going to try anyways. We're going to put it in his hands. You can get where I'm going with this and how I managed to use this to create a custom character for one of my players where he actually has his gear in hand. Let's go with the rotation tool now. And if I put my mouse over these lines that you see on the rotation tool, I can change them. Notice it's changing the numbers over here in the transform box. This is the numbered representation of the object that you're moving around. You can type stuff in here and hit enter, and it will move that object to that degree. So, yeah, you know what? You're going to hold it like a freaking wizard. You're going to hold it straight up and down. It is massive. And we'll move it over a little bit. If we go back to the combine tool, we can highlight the objects and link them together. Oh, Control Z. Need to link them the other way. Let's link the sword to the guy. There we go. Sometimes it'll do that where it... And then if I unlock it, I can move him around. Now, sadly, his base and that sword is kind of sticking out the bottom, but you get what I did here. I linked them together. Now, when I move them, they're fine. Maybe don't have something stick out of his base like that. The sword needs to be made smaller. But you can do all kinds of fun stuff with this. And want to customize the weapons on a starship? Or you want to give a dragon an item like a ring, and you happen to have a model of a ring? Well, splice them together and make it cool. Make it work for you. These are kind of, you don't need to do any of this, obviously, to play. I just think these are cool, cool features. So, or you can have a character like this. Or, for instance, a group of stormtroopers surrounded by sandbags. I don't know if I actually have a save of that. But you saw it at the beginning of the game. You can do that and have those ready to go. All right, so that was the link tool. That was also the Gizmo tool. One of the other things you can do with the Gizmo tool is if you go to volume, scale, and just general scale, we'll go general scale. It's another way of making objects bigger. Now that when I click them with the scale option, I can make them bigger, like this, and then make them wider, maybe that. I would never use these on character models like this. Wah! And they fell through the floor. Because I probably won't get it just right. But for changing the size of walls and floor components, definitely, absolutely, use the scale tool. Or say you just want to make them really big. Well, there is a limit to the plus and minus keys, but there is no limit when you're typing it in the transform box for scale. So I put 10, 10, and 10 in here, and suddenly they're very much larger. All right. So that's your scale tool. Decal tool, this is one that I've only used a handful of times. I don't actually have a decal to show you in here. And I don't have a map to give you a good example of it. But basically, you can put an image in here, and then you can slap it like stickers onto the table, onto other objects. I have used this to make craters, just a PNG of a hole, a black hole, and then I've used it to make holes in like armor, to represent like, hey, you know, this is a piece of damaged terrain. If you walk in here, you may fall down into the hole. That's how I've used it. You've also used it for like graffiti against walls. You just click it and import a I recommend PNG, so you have a transparency layer. But that's decals. And then the last one is the snap tool, which I never use, so I'm not going to go into what that does. This points tool can be used to create snap points and rotate snap points to make placing objects down much easier and smoother. Interesting. I'll have to play around with this. It's not a tool that I've ever bothered to use, so. All right. So those are some of the real basics to Tabletop Simulator. I hope this gave you an idea of why I use it and what you could be really creative with. Let's get into a couple of workshop items that will make your life as a GM so much easier. And the first one, and I've talked about this endlessly, if we go over to games, we go into the workshop. Links, by the way, will be in the description. I have a lot of stuff that I am subscribed to, so we're gonna have to search for it. It's called One World. There it is, One World. I will load this up. One World is a tool that allows you to, I use it to save my campaigns. It allows you to have a map, and then you can drill into that map and load up even more maps inside it. That may be a little confusing, so I'll show you. This right here is One World. As we load up our map, we have to initiate it. And all the descriptions, all these little cards tell you exactly how to use this tool, so I'm not going to go into super detail. I'm just going to show you what it does. Now we're going to lock it now that we've initiated it, and you're going to notice it actually added a panel onto the table, and it will do this to any table. Right? You can import this into your world, and it will make this little play space in the center. Now that we've done that, we can flick through using the two buttons to the left and to the right to load up whatever map he's got here. And he's got a map called The Rule of Man, which looks like a continent, probably some kind of RPG. And all these little X's on here are maps that the user has created, the GM for this world has created, so that he can hot swap between these spaces and save them. What a great way to organize your world. If you want a map for this particular island, apparently it's called Devil's Gold, or the docks. Like, let's load up the docks that he's got. My players have decided to go to the North Point docks, and I clicked it, and it's loaded up a 2D image of a map. And then I can click this build button, and it will load in all of the saved objects. And bam, he's got a nice, simple 3D map, a very simplistic map, a couple of bushes, and the players can have a battle on here if they want. It lets you pre-make some maps and save them as a world space. He's even got more going on here. What's this? Devil's Gold. Apparently it's a different place. I don't know what this is. Let's load it. Let's see. And oh, cool. It's one of those docks that we had seen, except for this time, it's an entire village. Looks like he doesn't put any objects on here, so there's nothing to build, so there's no build button. But we can go, I'm guessing this is a back. Oh no, this is a mine. Neat. Let's load up a mine. Now, the way that I use this, I've got a galactic map, and then all the little places that you can click on that would be cities in a D&D game. For me, oh, we got a couple of errors here. It looks like this map might be a little old, and some of the objects on it aren't loading in. They've probably been taken off the workshop. You just hit the X button a few times till they disappear, until it stops telling us. It'll clean the map up. Oh, I love this. He's actually made it a kind of a three-dimensional map, this cave, by cutting up pieces of the map and saving them as PNGs, importing them, and then he's probably used something like the Gizmo Tool and the Scale Tool to make these sections bigger so they look like cave walls. That's quite cool. He's even got some treasure chests over here. Very nice, very nice. I like that. That is very cool. So that's the tool. The way that you bring this into your world space, let's go ahead and clear it. Let's go all the way back, is when you first load it up, you're going to see this. 2 bags and a couple of these little squares, and then the actual like book-looking thing. If you scroll over all of them, right-click, save object, save it as, One World or Hub or whatever, you can import it into your world space and get started yourself. That is cool. I like that. I like that example. All of the descriptions, by the way, on how to use this properly are in here. And I've got a VOD on the channel of me making an entire map. So I'll try to remember to put a link to the description for that as well. So that's one of the tools. The next tool that I'm going to recommend is specifically for Star Wars GMs. It is a wonderful tool for making maps. It's called the Star Wars RPG Asset Map. I'm going to load that up. I love this thing. This is great. I loaded this up earlier. It already has one world built into it. And you can make your maps on here, and then you can exporting using one world, and it'll turn it into a little bag, and you can bring it into your world space and load it into your one world like campaign save. So what I'll do is I'll delete this. I'll delete that. I'll initiate one world. Lock. And I will build a map on this using, let's go to click this. We'll click new, starting up a brand new map. Okay, it makes this little square. I can right click this, I can name it, so name of zone. Once you've done this a couple of times, it becomes second nature, it becomes super easy. We'll call this, city. We'll call this Tech City, oops. Tech City, we'll build a little city. Sweet, Tech City, already made. I'm not gonna worry about putting, what you can do, if you right click this and go to custom, and you put an image in here, you know what, I'll pull an image off of Google right now, let's see. Battle map, city, street. I'm just gonna grab one real quick, I'm not gonna be super picky about it. Let's go cyberpunk. Sometimes if you put cyberpunk in, you'll get more, if you're looking for science fiction. Cyberpunk is a really great way of doing it. Oh, cool. Yeah, I found a sweet looking image off of Reddit. Let's use that one. Import. I just copy pasted the URL in here, clicked import. You can see that what it looks like. If you hit Alt while looking over an object, you can see a 2D image of it. Nice. Drag and drop it over one world. And it just straight up imported it in. Nice. We got a little 2D image of this. City street. It doesn't quite fit the scale of the table because it's a random thing I found on the internet. So we're going to click Fit Frame. It's going to repack it. Then I'm going to click the back button, the last button. Oh, it loaded the wrong thing. Let's go this way. Tech City. Oh, I need to go next instead. Double click it. And look at that. I hit Fit Frame and it actually fits the table now. Now that right there, that's good enough to fight on. That's good enough to have a battle. We can even throw on options. We can throw the grid on, show grid. There's the lines. Oh, they need to be bigger than that. Let's actually make them a different color. Let's make them black. And let's make them a little bit more transparent, maybe. Yeah, there we go. And maybe a little bit smaller. Boom, we're ready to go. We just made a map. That's all we needed. I could export this if I wanted to, but no, I want to build this out some more. So let's grab I don't know, let's put some upper class buildings. Now, the reason that I love this workshop map, right? This map right here, I'll take a little look around. You can see some Star Destroyers out there. There's like an asteroid out there. I love this map, the things that you can do in this game. It's got all these assets for you to use to create fun maps. Oh, these are Nabooian structures, probably from Star Wars Galaxies. Oh, that's great. Not exactly what I was looking for kind of a techno map, but let's click place on this. This is all these scripted bags, which I think are quite clever, that allows you to just pull out the things that you need so that the map doesn't get slowed down while you're creating. Oh, okay. That's kind of cool. You know what? I think we want to copy pasta this arch. Maybe we want like a big arch that goes across the road here. Sure, why not? And then maybe we'll have like a building over here. I don't know. Building side, if we want like three-dimensional objects, and that just kind of is right there. It's a little off the map, but I think one world will still pack it up. And let's put like one more building for whatever reason over here. Sure, why not? It doesn't exactly fit. I mean, this map was already pretty much good to go. But let's say that's the map. We've made our map. Now we want to pack it up and we want to export it. Well, first thing we got to do, pack it. Click pack, disappeared. Now it's packed up. It's saved onto one world for next time we want to load it. Let me flip around through here. Actually, let's load up their starfield. So this already had a starfield loaded into it. When I made that map of our city, our tech city, it made this little icon. You probably recognize this. This is a shortcut. I can, let's turn off the grid thing and grid snapping. So it's not doing that anymore. I can put this on a map. And now when I double click it, it's just a link to open up whatever map I want. That's how you make those layered maps. So we'll click build. And it will load in all the objects that it had saved. And that's why this tool is so good. Because you can save your maps and you can make them, be able to drill down through them. But we want to export this. We want to bring this into our world. So if I click export, it will bag it. Give it a second. That's it. It's done. It bagged it. It's a little weird. It's really weird that it left the image there. It wasn't supposed to do that. I don't quite know why it did that, but it bagged it. So this is the map. If we drag this over one world and drop it in while it's initiated, it will load this map into our one world. If I right click you and I go save object, we'll put it in the root folder again. And I go to games now, and I load up my tabletop that my players have been on. I can import this by bringing that back into my world and dropping it onto one world. And I've got a map in there. So that's how you export maps. If you ever go on to like one of the D&D maps that are pre-built, and you say, man, I really want this epic mine that we looked at earlier. I want this in my game world so my players can have a cool fight in a mine. And I don't want to make it. I want to take this. That's how you export a map. Now, my player's map here takes a little while to load, and I'll show you why this takes a while. It's because, I've got a little custom music playing there. Let me turn that off, one of the sound cubes. Let's initiate one world. This isn't actually a map. This is just a bunch of random assets that I had here. So what we're going to do is we're just going to clear this off. Because these aren't part of a map, I have to delete them manually. There we go, just unlocking them. Get out of here, door. We've initialized. Let's go to objects, saved objects, find our baggie. What did we call it? Tech City, didn't we? Tech City, drag and drop. One world immediately knows, hey, this is a map. I need to use this. And it's loaded it in. And now we go next. Nope, we go back. This is my main menu for getting into all my maps. But let's go back. You're not going to let me do it, are you? No. But it did make a link to it. If I just throw this link somewhere where I can click it, double click it. Hey, look, Tech City. That looks familiar. Build. Give it a second to load. All of its 3D objects have loaded in. Like the worst map ever. There it is. I love the fact that because I was doodling, all this stuff is here. Because this is separate from one world. Very cool. There's even some stuff you can do to make it so certain things don't get packed up if you don't want them to get, like you want them to stay on the table for some reason. You can totally do that. You'll also notice this is a custom table. This came off the workshop. This is called the Chimera table. If you're looking for a custom one, it even has little containers for players to store stuff into if they want to. So they can keep, character models in there, objects that they need or may need. But there you are. So that is my relatively quick run through of one world of Tabletop Simulator, why I use it. Hopefully this was helpful to some of you. If you found a cool new toy and way to run games for your friends, thank you so much for hanging out with me. If you want to see more tabletop videos like this one, let me know in the comments below. I look forward to reading them, and I will see you all in the next video. Have a lovely day. Bye, everybody.